Thanks. Hey guys, well welcome to the new village workspace, which is really, really exciting, and we're very proud to be moved in over here in the corner. Throughout the day, the 360Heros team is going to kind of help you out. So over here on the very end, we have Matt. He's going to be teaching the afternoon. He's going to do a lot of the work with the stitching side of it. Then we have Justin, which is in charge of the marketing. That's helping us out in reference to what we're doing. Allie is actually a shooter, so she does a lot of 360 stuff. And then we have Nina, who's also a shooter and producer. And then we also have Jami on the end. So throughout the day, if you've got questions. I was waiting for that, so. But no, Jami does a lot of the quoting for production shoots and stuff like that we're doing, and also does some of the social media marketing and things like that as well. Did I do that right? Yeah. Good. So throughout the day, what we're going to do is, if you have any questions, the hard part about this type of event is the software. Because we didn't write all the software, some things work, some things don't. And plus, because we're literally, like, you're going to see some new stuff with CamMan, you know, that stuff was literally written like just a couple days ago. So we're constantly trying to adapt and change as people come in for requests and so forth. So we're trying as hard as we can to keep this stuff rolling and moving forward. The agenda is slightly changed. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about video capture. We're going to talk about all the gear and the theories behind all this stuff, because what we've discovered is if you shoot it correctly, post-production drastically decreases. So if you shoot it wrong, it becomes a nightmare. And we're going to talk to you about the things that we've done over time, and we're going to try to share in those experiences. But we're also going to show you the theory behind every single one of these rigs and why we built them. Then we're going to talk a little bit about CamMan, all the different features with CamMan and why we built it. And then we'll get into shooting exercises. So we'll actually break up into 3 teams, and each person will go with a group, and we're going to talk about actually shooting everything here. And one of the things that Ali and Anders wanted was shooting of the area. Well, he's going to get tons of 360 video of this area, so they'll have plenty to play with. Because that might, shooting exercises sometimes happens a little bit longer, that's going to break into lunch. So we'll kind of, towards the end, we'll break into lunch, and we'll still work with you for each one of them. And then the afternoon is about 2 hours. We're going to touch on the different types of video stitching processes. Also, some ways to cheat the system. And that's what's most important, is because no matter what anybody tells you, there is no perfect 360 video gear, except for ours. But we're going to show you how to cheat the system to make it look almost perfect. And it's just because of lens parallax and physics is a lot of those issues. And we're going to talk about why. And then we'll just kind of wrap up at the end. So just a show of hands here, how many people have actually shot 360 video period with any gear? Okay, how many people are brand new newbies? Okay, what we're going to do is, for some of you that's seen some of this stuff, it's going to be a repeat, but my goal is to try to take all this mix and try to bring us together within the next hour so that you're on the same playing field as we go to move forward. But a little bit about 360Heros in general is our mission was to literally create and build and inspire others to create 360 video content. And most of the stuff that we've gotten to this point, or why we've even developed this in the first place, was I was an aerial photographer, but I did a lot of lighter and air solutions. So the problem is I can only carry 7.2 pounds. And when you have one DLSR, which weighs 5.6 pounds, how in the world do you put multiple DLSRs when the blimp can't pick it? So this is where all of this that we've built today was developed around this rig and this rig. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the history of where this comes from, and we're going to show you graphically how it works. The other thing we also got inspired by is I was a Google trusted photographer for panoramics. And one of the things is I was going out and doing panels all over the place, but I literally would have to take 3 to 6 to 9 shots to do one panel. And I got sick and tired of doing that. I just wanted to do, because being a photographer, sometimes trying to generate revenue from this is a royal pain. So trying to collect or do your process fast enough to optimize only charging $200 per virtual tour, you wanted to come up with a quicker and faster solution. So that's where this was all inspired from. And it was also inspired by Steven Spielberg, because back in 2006, one of the things he said is not in too distant future that you're going to be able to go to a movie and see everything all around you. So he kind of foreseen what was actually happening, and now it's physically happening. There's a lot of math. And what was very, very interesting is when I first started doing this back in late 2011, actually mid-2011, for me to do 1 minute of video took me 2.5 weeks to stitch the content, because it was frame by frame by frame. And I actually use a product called PT GUI. How many people here have heard of that? Okay, that's a great little product. And matter of fact, if you want to do time lapse, CamMan has a version in there that will let you manage all that data for time lapse. And we've actually done anywhere between 3 to 4 week long time lapse with the GoPros. So you can create really, really super high resolution. And even with the Pro 6 mode, the output panel is right around a 9K to 10K, depending upon how you stitch it. So you got a super, super high resolution when you're producing content like that. Now, one of the things that we've learned is that it doesn't take one rig to do the work. It takes many different rigs, and they all have different purposes. For example, this one here is the Pro 6, the most common one. This particular rig can be mounted in different directions, and on the bottom here you're going to actually see 3 different types of mounting holes, and we're going to talk about why you use these mounting holes. They all have their own purpose when you're trying to film the content, and we're going to get in a lot more detail in how that works. Then we get into the Pro 6N rig. Okay, here we've got 5 cameras on the horizon and 1 up. And then you can flat surface mount this. So a lot of the times people put it on a helmet or be able to use it in that type of an environment. Then we have the Pro 7. And what's interesting is the Pro 7 and the Pro 10, it used to be the Pro 6, but the Pro 7 and the Pro 10 is what we sell the most of today. And we're going to explain to you why, because we have more cameras on the horizon. And again, during post, if you film with this correctly, you can literally cheat the system to make it look almost perfect. And that's what we want to try to do. This is our goal today. When you leave here, you'll be able to create super high resolution content that's theater quality and make it really look stellar. And that's what we're going to try to teach you today on how to be able to do that. Then you get in the Pro 7 HD, which we don't sell anymore, but we replaced it with the Pro 10 because it's the exact same rig, except it's got 3 more cameras. So you'll still use the 7 cameras on the horizon, and we're going to show you the math behind it so that you really understand exactly what's happening with each one of these rigs. And then we get into the 3D stuff. The 3D stuff is really compelling. And if you want to do 3D, the easiest 3D rig that we have is called the Pro 12H. That's one in the middle. And the reason why that's the easiest one is both the left and the right eye is shared on the top and bottom. So that when you go to stitch the left eye and the right eye, you can keep everything perfectly aligned, because if this eye is just slightly tipped, and you go to move your head, it'll give you instant vertigo. And there's a lot of tricks in being able to do that, but the 12H we discovered is the most popular. And what we also discovered is when we talked with Oculus and Facebook and stuff like that, they say they love that solution because it's basically 3D on the horizon. 90% of the people don't look down, okay? So, and if they do look down, their balance is shifted and the 3D kind of disappears, so the vertigo feeling is gone, okay? So now a lot of people say, well, no, we want to shoot with a 14H, okay, which is 3D down and 3D up. But just the rig works, but it's not perfect. And that's because the technology that we have displayed today is not doing that. Except I'm very proud to see what AMD is doing because they're getting rid of this latency issue. You notice how he's going to shift and then all of a sudden the frame would catch up to you. Well, when you're doing video, because our mind is used to that, when we go to shift down, if there's a latency, it's kind of funny in a way because the person will immediately tip down and do this. You know, because they physically feel like they're falling. So, and it's because the video is not catching up to them quick enough, you know, and if it was fast enough, it wouldn't bother them. But because when that transition happens, the mind is playing games, okay, and it literally caused them to fall. So those are the things that we don't want to do with this type of experience. So what I'm going to do is really briefly is what we like to do is talk to you about our failures and what happened in each one of these types of failures and successes. You know, I'll be point blank. You know, we've done a lot of different experimental things and we found things that don't work and we found things that do work. So what we're going to try to do is show you the things that did work for us, and then we're also going to show you the things that didn't work. And that's even more important because you could be in that type of experience. So how do we get you past that? Especially when you're on set and the director's breathing down your throat saying, where's my content? Where's my content? So, and you have to tell them that the GoPro camera didn't work on one of the fires. So there's ways to get around that, and we're going to show you how to do that. So one of the ones I want to kind of give you a little experience is Visa. We did this project, it was actually in the beginning of 2014. And down here on the bottom was the 3 different types of rigs that we actually used to accomplish this. Because the athletes were wearing it on their head, they were jumping into the water, there was all sorts of different types of things that we needed to accomplish. The other thing is too is the GoPros are actually very, very resilient. So, for example, this rig is a great rig. I mean, it's nice. It's actually the cheapest of all of our rigs, okay? 6 cameras. It works very, very well. We started off this with using scuba where we had snap-on domes and things like that, okay? But the problem is the rig is too big, okay? The distance for this rig compared to this rig, it's obvious what the difference is, okay? The smaller the rig, the better off you're going to be, unless you replace it with more cameras, okay? So for example, if I'm going to go from this size rig to this rig, this is a new rig that's actually going to be released real soon, so this is why it's white. So it simulates the new injection mold process that we're going to be doing, okay? This rig will stitch 8K. This rig will stitch 12K. And if you can film in the highest resolution, you want to do it if the frame rate allows based upon what you're trying to accomplish. So for example, you don't want to shoot in 12K, in 4K mode, or 2.7K mode because you're only getting 30 frames a second. And if you happen to be moving anything faster than 15 miles an hour, today's technology makes it very, very difficult to stitch unless you're doing Genlock, okay? So, but we can show you ways to, again, cheat the system. So you can, how many people here have seen our 360 dragster video? Okay, has anybody seen that online? Okay, that guy's doing 160 miles an hour in 4 seconds. And we're going to show you that content, and that was done with the Pro 6 rig at 120 frames a second, and it looks pretty good. It's still a little bit off, but we're going to show you the experiences behind that. But I had to sacrifice resolution in order to get that rig to work at that very fast speed rate. Does everybody kind of understand what I'm talking about on this? Okay, good. All right, so at least everybody's awake then. That's good. So why is mounting so important, okay? Especially in the 360 world. Because when you run into this type of a problem or issue, you want to make damn sure your rig is getting the results that you want, okay? So the guy is jumping off the bridge, okay? He's got that perfectly positioned so one of those cameras is on him all the time, okay? The picture down on the bottom, Chris did a great job there because one of those cameras is pointing directly at the lion, okay? But look at the picture above. Look at the angle of where that camera is, and that camera is right on a seam. So when he's trying to play the content back and the lion's moving, okay, you got two lenses pointing, and now you don't have a perfect stitch. So when people look at that experience, they're like, oh, that's not good, okay? So a lot of the times to try to fix them is a huge problem. And I want everybody to try this experience, and you're gonna see exactly why. Especially when you have so many people in here, you're gonna see really what happens. What I want you to do is put your thumb in front of your face, and I want you to hold it about this far away, okay? I want you to look with the left eye, then look with the right eye, and notice how much the background changed, okay? Now, take your thumb, put it far as you can reach, look with the left eye, and look with the right eye, and notice how much changed. Less, okay? So the trick is, it's no different here, okay? We have basically one eye looking this way, we have one eye looking this way, okay? They gotta converge out here. So how do you fix that, okay? That's what we wanna be able to show you. And we're gonna show you some very interesting math, and we're gonna show you some actually 3D models, the stuff that we actually use to create all of this. We're gonna prove this to you so that you can see and understand why. A lot of people want to be able to use drones, okay? Drones work great, okay? Nice part about it is this Pro 7 rig that I've got here weighs 1.85 pounds. So pretty much the newest DJI Phantom will carry it, even though it has a 20-minute flight time, okay? You have to be very careful on that particular rig. You want to make sure it's close, because if you move it down too far, the computer that's trying to keep this going, this acts as a pendulum, okay? And I'll guarantee you, you will lose it, okay? Because it's going to try to fight, and it's not going to be able to find it. That particular rig there is a $15,000 rig, and we've had that extended down as low as 3-4 feet below it, okay? So that we kind of get rid of the copter out of the picture. And that machine could be able to handle it. So we're going to show you some examples there. How many people here have drones and have tried to experiment with that type of stuff? Okay, so there's a couple here. So we're going to show you a couple little examples there as well. Now let's start to get into the meat of this and the theories behind what you want to be able to do. Okay, so what we have on the screen here is we actually have a Pro 7 on the screen. So let me just, let me take this one. No, I can grab it right off of this one here. I'll just steal it here. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you a little bit later the different types of mounting solutions. And what we've recently done is, this was our old mounting solution, okay? It's all one piece. And what we've done is we've modified it slightly to a piece that looks like this. They look the same, okay? Almost the same. Same type of process, okay? But what we've done here is this has got a 3/8 mount on the bottom. Now on the bottom, this has a 1/4 20, so it'll work with the smaller mounts. But you can take this off. This is mainly acting as a stand at this point. And now you can put this in its place up here. So now we have nothing in the way of mounting it up. And then we can actually mount this like this.
What size is the bigger end?
3/8. 3/8 both sides. Both sides 3/8, and then we have the 1/4-20 on the bottom, which fits all the other types of units. And there's some reasons why, and we're going to show you here in a second with some of these other mounts. So we're going to try to go through the different configurations. So the trick is when we film with this gear is you have to determine, is the talent more important or the surroundings more important? Because when you're, the interesting thing is you're filming everything. So like for example, what kind of got me into this in the first place is I was watching a TV program and I'm like, man, I would love to be able to just stick my head inside that TV and look left or right to find out what was really over there, okay? Well, this is everything, including the cameraman. So unfortunately, the cameraman loses his job, and the talent is a little bit more upset because 90% of the time they're carrying the rig. So you have to use these types of things or be able to train these types of people to be able to do that. And actually, I will have you take that one apart if you could. Thanks, Matt. So, for example, hopefully everybody will hear me okay, but I'm just going to kind of show you some different things that are happening is, if I film this way, notice this camera is pointed right in front of me. If I'm holding it, I have two cameras on me. So if I'm not the important part of the actual project, okay, we can adjust that. So for example, if I'm more important, I'm going to mount it this way so that I'm holding this, and because of this void here, all of this actually physically disappears. Okay? So it's about this distance, it actually is gone. And we're going to show you on the screen where this physically happens, where this count is. That's why on here we also have another mounting position over here. So this one says the talent. So if I'm doing like a virtual reality of a walkthrough of a house, okay, this is the best rig because it has 5 cameras. Most walls in the houses are straight up and down. Okay, so as you go to pass through doors and things like that, it's very easy to hide the seams. If you're using the Pro 6 rig, it actually does like a little 45-degree mark. It's kind of a pain. So as you're kind of walking through, you're trying to get rid of that type of stuff. And we're going to show you what I mean in a second. So again, as everybody kind of understand what they see here about being able to do this. So that's the most important thing. Before you even start, is you have to find out is, what are you trying to film? Is it the talent or is it the environment? Because that's all going to mount or change based upon these different types of mounting solutions that are physically here. You have to ask that question every single time. Because in post, if time is money and you film it wrong, what could be to produce something, in most cases, an hour could turn into 12 hours or sometimes even longer. So for example, with the Pro 6 or the Pro 7 rig, if we film here, I can film 5 takes, ingest all the data, play it all back, stitch it, put it online, and do it all in about 35, 40 minutes. Okay?
And you're saying that would be talent focused?
Pardon me?
You're saying with a focus on the talent?
With a focus on talent or anything. If you're worried about the talent, then the camera needs to be this way. If you're worried about what's in front of you, okay, if somebody's in front of you and they're talking back at you, okay, you want to make sure they're not directly in front of you, they're over here in front of this camera or over here in front of this camera. So it's very, very important that you teach or tell the people that are looking at this that What's in front of the camera, you need to be in front of that. You don't want to be on the seam. Yep.
So are you saying that there's a front and back to the rig?
Yes, there is. Yep. And that's why we have so many different mounts. Because every one of these mounting positions have different positions. And I'm going to show you why here. So let me swap over to something here real quick. Okay, let's see what I got to do. What I'm going to do here. Okay, so what this is it's all about ratios inside of a camera system. Okay. Actually, before I do that, I am going to explain this slide. Key to filming is this, okay? Before you start any project that you're working on, these are all the things that you need to do before you even start to film, okay? And you have to ask those questions. And one of them is you need to understand the camera system. We're going to go into that in a second. The second thing is do you have the right SD cards? All right, there are 64 gig cards, there are 18 gig or 16 gig cards, or 8 gig cards, all sorts of different types of cards, okay? This card is the best card on the market to date, okay? This is a 32 gig Extreme Plus, 80 megs a second, okay? You can buy the 64 gig, but the problem is the camera gets hot. When it starts writing massive amounts of data, the camera could shut down, okay?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part about
The camera will get hot, okay? Because if you've got more data that's trying to crunch into that area, it's just going to shut down. Plus, at 32 gigs, this is going to give you 2 hours worth of filming, okay? That's a lot of stitching, all right?
So the faster the card.
The faster the card is better. It's not necessarily size that's important. Okay? You want to make sure that the 32 gig will do what you need to do.
64 gigs come with 90 now. But
They do.
Is that still overkill?
It's overkill. You're paying extra money that's not needed. Yep. Yeah, you don't need it. That's okay. You don't need it. You'll actually, be honest with you, you might run into problems.
Yeah, I got hot the other day.
Yeah, exactly. Because you think about it, you're crunching all that data, the same amount of space, 32 gig, and you're crunching that same amount of data in a 64 gig space. So heat's going to develop.
So if you don't have to shoot for 2 hours, what if it's like 30 minutes and you want to be sure you're not going to overheat? Would you go even
Nope, 32 gigs I found, I've tested 8s to 16s, 32s is just about perfect for everything across the board. Okay, and we've done some very interesting experiments. For example, on the top of Mount Everest, okay, it was minus 51 without the wind chill. We used the 32 gig cards. The GoPro, they actually worked, which I was really shocked. Okay, and the nylon actually worked as well because he actually changed one of the cameras when he was up there and it didn't break. So I was pretty shocked at that, because when they told me about that particular project, I'm like, you can try, but minus 51, I actually got in trouble when with my wife when we started that particular job because she literally, I told her, I says, well, I got this Mount Everest job, and she's like, really? And I said, yeah, and it's minus 51 up on the top. And then she walked into the kitchen and she yelled at me really bad because what I did was I cleaned out my freezer, put all the stuff on the counter. I put all my rigs in the freezer because I wanted to see if it at least get to minus 10 or minus 12, So needless to say, I kind of got in trouble that night. But it was interesting because we didn't know, we don't know. Even the stuff that we're learning here today, it could change tomorrow because we're constantly learning what the cameras can do today and then trying to adapt to it. The second thing, what's really important is understanding the modes, okay? What modes do you shoot in and why, okay? And we're going to talk about these modes. Pro 6, 7, and 10 models, they use either the 4:3 ratio or the 16:9 ratio. Thing that you want to make sure that you're doing when you first start, do not film in 16:9 mode unless you know what the hell you're doing. Okay? And I'm very serious with that because we just got some super compelling footage from the Antarctic. Okay? It was all filmed in 16:9 mode, done on the Pro 6 and Pro 7. Guess what? All wasted. Gone. Because there's no coverage, and we're going to show you this coverage, okay, which is really important, okay? The next thing that we want to talk about, frame rates. Frame rates is extremely, extremely critical. You want to shoot, if you're in 14:4, you want to shoot the maximum frame rate that that camera will allow you to do. So if you're in 3 plus, I think, what is it, 60 frames a second? No, or 80.
40?
Yeah.
1440 mode?
Yeah. I think
47,
48. On fours you can get 60.
40 mode you can get 80.
80, yes. So whatever mode that you're doing, you want to make sure that if you're shooting in 1440 mode, you want to make sure you use always the max frame rate. Because at any motion or whatever, you could be a half frame out or a quarter frame out, or when that person goes across in front of that flame, you're going to get this weird seam. That the only way you can fix it is 1 frame at a time, at 80 frames a second, okay, manually fixing every single frame. That's the only way you can get around it. All right, so you have to be careful with that. The other thing that we also learned is that in shooting this type of stuff, like when we were on top of Mount Everest, it took us 3 tries to do that particular project. And the interesting thing is we had a very healthy guy the very first time. He got to base camp 4, he started up, got altitude sickness, and almost died. We had to airlift him out, okay? So it was not good. The second try is we had to try to train another Sherpa to be able to do this, but I said, listen, when you get to base camp 4, just turn the cameras on and make sure the thing's going to work, okay? So he did that. He turned the cameras on, and again, at that altitude, you're thinking about living, not the camera. So what he did was he turned the cameras on, made sure they worked, he put it in his jacket, he trekked to the top of Everest, got back down, showed the footage, we looked at it, and this is what we heard. It stitched perfect because it was pitch black, okay? Because it was in his coat, you know? So the third try, you know, they literally, you know, John Greiber was the one guy that actually did this particular thing, and he's like, well, what do we do? I said, well, third time's a charm. So we trained another Sherpa. He went to the top of Everest. I said, listen, when you get up there, just turn it on and hold it up, okay? So he turned it on, he held it up and went, you know, so now we've discovered that how in the world do you video stabilize 360 content? Again, this was done in 2013. Even though that we got in the Guinness Book of Records for 2015, okay, it took a couple years to figure out how to do that. And we had 40 minutes of footage, but in the end, we only had like 26 seconds. Then I slowed it down to get almost a minute, okay? But that's how we got it. But it took months to stitch that because we don't have the technology like we have today.
What record is that?
Shoot.
Did it film at the top of Everest?
It was actually the first HD 360 video on top of Mount Everest. Yeah, so it was pretty cool, you know, to be able to get something like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a little bit about the technology, and I'm going to show you something here that talks about ratios. Okay, and I'm going to show you the actual 3D model to do this. And one of them is when I shoot the camera in 4:3 aspect ratio, this is basically projecting a screen, okay? When I take the same camera and I project it in 16:9 mode, look what I see, okay? I see the camera. The data is not coming together, so you don't see it. And I'm going to show you this in a 3D model now. Yep, I can do that. Okay, so this is basically my CAD modeling software, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to look at just one of these cameras. So we're going to say edit this in a separate window. And this is basically your GoPro camera. And this is what it looks like with 4:3 aspect ratio, okay? Now I'm going to turn on the 16:9 ratio. Okay, so the 16:9 is the outer one, or excuse me, the 16:9 is the inner one, so I'll hide this one temporarily. Okay, there's the 16:9 mode. All right, and then if I do the same thing in 4:3 aspect ratio, that's the topper green part. Everybody kind of understand what's happening with just one camera, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to say, let's just do 16:9 mode, or excuse me, 4:3 aspect ratio. And I'm going to look at this Pro 6 rig. Now if we take a look, see right here, I can see into the corner of that camera. And look at that little hole right there. Okay? So if I tell it to, I think I can say, edit here. There we go. So now you can kind of see inside what's physically happening. Okay? See where they all overlap. And the reason why we have this hole here is because you got 3 different lenses coming in. So when you're looking at that on the Pro 6, and that's what we have here on the screen. So if I look at the Pro 6 corner, here's the corner spot. And the Pro 6 works great for if I wanted to film this room, okay? And if I'm worried about people, I'm going to try to mount this camera pointing here, so I'm going to get you pretty decent. I'm going to put the seam right on that bright light, okay, from the lens. Then I'm going to easily be able to get you guys over here on the side. Now if I'm standing over here, it's kind of a bummer because I'm right on the seam, you know? So I would have to be standing here if I want to talk to you. Does everybody kind of understand watching these lenses and using them all the time when you're communicating? Now, this little hole right here is where the lenses eventually don't. Each one of these positions is about 13.5 inches from the camera. Okay? So you go out here 13.5 inches, and this is where the merge starts to happen. This is where everything starts to cross. Okay? Once they cross, now you can start stitching. Okay? The reason why we don't have anything here, because we got 3 lenses, and eventually that's going to cross down about here, which is about 2.5 feet. Okay?
So you don't want to film anything that's closer than
Exactly. 2.5 feet is the key thing. With this one, okay? It changes, because once you go to the 7, it changes even more. Once you go to the 10, it changes even more. And we're going to show you physically each one of those different examples.
Yeah, I have a question. I thought about this a lot. Do you have any like on-set tools to kind of give talent, you know, marks and things
Yep.
like that, or is it just knowledge you have?
It's knowledge I have, but a lot of the times we will do a ruler, just pull out a ruler, and then we're going to show you this new type of mount system over here on the side. I personally like, if I need to do anything that's important, okay, it'll always be done with the 7 or the 10. Very rarely will I use this 6, okay, because I want more overlap. More overlap lets me cheat the system in the end. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that, okay? So, for example, if we take, this is the Pro 6 rig. So I'm going to zoom this back out, and we can kind of see where the overlap is and how much this overlaps, all right? Now I'm going to take the same thing, and I'm going to look at a 7, okay? This is a 7 rig. Notice I got 5 on the side. Notice how this is covering almost everything here. It is almost perfect. It's just a little tiny piece right here in the corner. okay? But notice the overlap. A lot of overlap here, okay? Again, that's 13 inches away. So if we take a look at the 7, we look down on top of it, we try, again, why we have so many different mount points is we try to get them perfectly on the parallax point of each one of these mounts so that that rig will disappear as much as you can and you get that floating effect. Or how in the world did they do that type of effect, okay? Now, the other thing I want to talk about is resolution, all right? If you take our rigs, everything that we have, and as far as I know today for a prosumer camera, we are the highest resolution rig on the market to date, okay? Granted, you have the Jaunt rig, but how many cameras do they got? Okay? They got massive overlap, okay? So there's a lot. And this is why the Pro 7 and the Pro 10 is the most popular used prosumer product out there because of this overlap. Now, here's something really important is resolution, as we normally see it, is someone says, well, I got a 4K camera. Okay, well, that's great. 4K in a 360 environment is basically take that number and divide it by 4. Typical human viewing angle is 90 degrees. Okay, so half of 4K is 2K, half of 2K is 1K. So if you have a 4K output, what are you only viewing? 1K, okay? So we have 4K monitors, you know? So now, one of the things that we like to do is our output starts at 8K, okay? So 180 degrees is 4K, 90 degrees is what? 2K, okay? So that's at least a little bit better to view. The problem we have today is, though, what's the maximum we can view? 4K, okay, today. Right, exactly. Unless you go to dome projection systems, okay? Dome projection systems, you can get up to 36K. But they're cheating the system because they're using one camera to handle 4K each time, okay? So, but the resolution that we're creating can create that or split it up correctly to display on really large systems. So that's where the Pro 10 works in. But here we have the Pro 7. And when we look at the Pro 7, we're going to compare the Pro 7 to the Pro 10. Okay? So here we can see 5 cameras. We can see the different overlaps. And notice how this one here, I got more space here than I do on this side. Matter of fact, there's just one area that doesn't match. So here's the other thing that's very, very important. Keep the lenses close together. So 90% of the time, this is how you're going to film with this rig. You're going to film with number 1 down. And you don't even have to know the numbers. Notice the distance from this lens to this lens, the distance from this lens to this lens. Okay? Farther away, we've got holes on the top. So it takes longer. So that means for this one to stitch correctly, it's probably like this, okay, all the way around. But because these ones are closer, it's going to be about like this, okay? Still tricky, but that's the absolute minimum that you want to deal with, okay? So now I'm going to show you the same thing with the 10 rig. Check out the overlap on that one. Same distance, and I've covered everything. Hold on here, it's thinking. Come on. There we go. So see all this overlap? Same thing. It's just still the 4:3 ratio, But now I've got a lot more cameras, a lot more overlap, which means I can now take this rig, okay, and I can get even closer to it. This one it's about this distance, okay? But the neat part is I can take, because I've got 7 cameras on the horizon, I can put 7 people around this. But I cheat the system again. I put each one of the persons in front of each one of these lenses, okay, and get super high-res content. And we've done projects for companies like Disney, and they're going to play it on the big theaters, okay? They can do that because we teach the talent the rules. We always film at a 45-degree angle, so we're going to take a tripod mount system like that, stick the tripod mount on the bottom, so when I look straight down, okay, it's basically a nadir is filled on the bottom. And then when the person looks, 90% they look down and they say, well, I don't even see it. Well, we just hit it into a desk or something so that they don't find it.
Wait a minute, you put the tripod on the one that goes straight down, right?
No,
you said-
no, 45. So we'll do these angles. So you got these angle pieces. See how that one's mounted? Do it at an angle. So granted, that's got a really long stem on it, but you height it so that when they go to look down, people, normally the rig sits like this and they look down, they see the tripod.
And that's better than putting it in the one that's straight down?
Yeah, usually the one is straight down. We use that purely for drones.
Oh, upside down.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
That's why. Okay, and with that one, you can actually pop that one camera out and you'll notice there's another screw right in on top of that. So that will be perfectly level under the drone. Because again, equilibrium, balance, is extremely critical. Okay. So with this one, you also notice this too. In the same distance, this is the newest 10 that just came out. And it'll be out very soon. This is the flat one. But if you look at it on this side, check out the overlap on that one. Huge overlap. Okay? So, if we're going to film with this one, okay, again, other methods, we can use this straight down mount, literally put that in a room, and if the people are dancing around in this area and you're trying to capture all of them, you're going to turn it around so you got more coverage, okay, on the bottom. Everybody kind of see what's happening? Okay. Every mode that we talked about here is all 4:3 ratio. No matter what you do, in 4:3 ratio, the output resolution is 8K. You can put 20 cameras on here, it doesn't matter. The output ratio is the same because it's all 4:3 oriented at 960 or 1440 mode. Okay? Now, the nice part is if you're using the Hero 4 black, you can now do 2.7K 4:3 ratio. Resolution, because you went from 1440. 1440 will give you 4K. 960 mode, faster frame rate, that's going to give you 6K mode. Okay? If you shoot at 2.7K, it jumps to 12K. So no matter how you stay in that mode of process, those ratios all perfectly match that resolution every time. Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm really struggling with the frame rate thing.
Yep. What?
It's cool, so if we're shooting at a high frame rate when we play back, it's lower.
No, it's not, because when you want higher frame rate because of sync, video sync. That's all that means.
So your playback?
Playback is still in real-time mode, but what you're doing is we're cutting the frames back. But the sync part is what's most important, because when you go from one frame to the next frame to the next frame, and we're going to show you some examples here just with audio, you're going to see that you could be a half frame off or a quarter frame off, and it'll ruin your whole 360 video experience.
So you're upping frame rates in order to minimize that instead of using the gen lock to sync it?
Exactly. Yep. So now there's some things that you're going to see here really soon that'll be Genlock cameras, and we are building them right now, and we're going to introduce them at NAB.